and impact coach, and today we are talking about how do I stop working all the hours and have a team that I can 100% trust. So that's a topic for today's Ask Me Anything, or AMA as it is always known. And this is so important because if you want to run a business with less stress, if you want to have more fun and more freedom, if you want to have a team you can trust to get the job done, if you want to be able to take time off without the business falling apart or coming to a complete standstill, and if you want to have a business that becomes an asset, which means you have something in the future that perhaps when you retire or perhaps for some other reasons that you want to sell, versus you actually having a job with a not so great boss, then it's really, really important that you learn how to do this. Okay, so if you're watching live, please put hashtag live in the comments and let me know where you are viewing this from. And if you are watching this on the replay, put hashtag replay. Please pop your questions that you have in here or share your experiences as we're talking about different aspects of this. I've got 5 things that I want to share with you here today. And if you're watching on the replay, keep watching through, add a question, when that pops up for you, and I will come back and answer that when I get a little ping notification for it. Okay, so just do me a favor and just let me know, are you hearing me okay? I just want to check that this is working all right before I go any further. So just not seeing any comments yet. Let me just check. Here we are. I just want to check, is that notification? Yep. Okay, good. That is, it's working on Facebook anyway. So broadcasting over Facebook, LinkedIn and YouTube at the moment. Okay, so the first thing to look at is actually your own personal productivity. Have you ever heard of the 80-20 rule, sometimes known as the Pareto principle? And that rule states that you're going to get 80% of your results from 20% of your effort. Now, what happens is so often that people get caught up in all the different things that they could be doing in their business, but they're not necessarily focused on the things that work best for them and that really drive their productivity forward and that drive the business forward. And so as a business owner, it's really important to understand, well, what are the things that only you can do that actually you really ought, you don't want to delegate, that that you ought to be keeping a hold of for now as the business owner, and being able to have a team do other things. And what you've got to remember is that people will do what you do, not what you say. So if you have got habits that are not particularly productive, then the chances are you're encouraging your team to do the same. So I would say look at things like, well, what's your morning routine? Is it you get up and you brush your teeth and you have your breakfast and those kinds of things? Or are you doing any learning? Are you doing any meditation, exercise? Like if you've got to do that self-care for yourself, that allows you to think clearly, that allows you to be more strategic, and quite often actually to be more long-term in your business. And funnily enough, what actually allows you to do that is being more present. So making sure that you're dealing with any mindset issues that could be, instead of having any going on in your head, you want to be able to take that time to actually look after yourself, make sure that you are centered and that you are being the best of yourself. And when you do that, that will have a wonderful knock-on effect on everyone who is working with you, because it encourages them to do the same. It means that you're less likely to overreact to things. You're more likely to think things through and to make better decisions in the business when you're actually looking after yourself and looking after your own productivity. So that's the first one. The second thing is have a written business plan. Now, I've mentioned this in some of the other AMAs in this series. Why? Because it's so important. And yet, 60% of small and medium-sized businesses do not have a written plan. Now, I'm not talking about the kind of business plan that you would use to go and get finance. I'm talking about a working plan. So one of the things I do with my clients is we have recurring 90-day plans. Oh, great, got comments coming in. Thank you, Alison and Becky, both saying that they can hear me. So good, great to hear that. So having a written plan is really important for several reasons. And one of those reasons is so that the rest of the team knows what is going on. So often I have business owners say to me, oh yeah, I have a plan, it's in my head. But there's a few flaws with that. Like, number one, when it's in your head, it means your team doesn't have the context of why are they doing what they're doing. Like, why are you asking them to do a certain thing or to prioritize things a certain way? They would actually be able to make much better decisions if they understood what the plan was and, why you're doing what you're doing. It cannot be underemphasized how important this level of communication is, and actually getting the team involved in creating that and in contributing to it, so that you're getting the best of the team as well, rather than keeping everything in your head. Even if you're working with outsourced people as opposed to employed teams of people, you would be surprised at the input that you can get and how they might be able to spot areas that they go, oh, well, have you heard of this software? Or what if we did things in this way? What if we created a process or a system for X? Or, oh, I can do such and such. I can take that off your hands. And those are the kinds of conversations that you want to be having with your team. Now, the other reason why it's so important to have a 90-day plan and to with those bigger projects and promotions, to actually get in and properly plan them out, is it helps to have real clarity around roles and accountabilities, so that you're thinking about, well, who needs to be involved in this project? Or, okay, so this person over the next 90 days, what's really important? What are the top 1 to 3 things that I want them to achieve in that 90 days? And for them to know that and understand that as well. So it just allows you to have real clarity around that. Okay, tip number 3 is hire the best team members that you can afford. Again, whether that's on an employee basis or whether that's on a virtual kind of freelance basis, hire the best you can afford, because you want people who are going to come in and really add value to the business, not just to delegate tasks to. That's good. It's good, and it's better than doing it all yourself. But perhaps one of the reasons why you find it hard to have a team you can trust is that you haven't recruited at the right level. People who, instead of having people who you have to teach everything to, if you have people coming in and actually teaching you, then wow, wouldn't that be amazing? That they already know how to do what you want done. Like, that's kind of that next level of recruitment. Now, you're still going to need to, show them, well, how do you want things done around here? What's the culture of the company that you're, that is already there or that you're looking to cultivate? Those are things, of course, that, that they're still going to need to learn. So, you need to allow for that. But having those higher level team members makes a big difference. And this is actually one of the things that happens when business owners are taking on staff, is they don't always recruit people in the right order. So they quite often will recruit somebody to, say, perhaps do some client work, when actually if they recruited somebody to help them to be more effective, that might actually be a better way of doing things. Or maybe they need to hire the manager first and then bring the team in under them and let them be a part of that. So it depends on what the business is and what you're doing. But that's something else that you want to be looking at as well. Okay, tip number 4 is you want to have you and the team in flow. What do I mean by that? Okay, well, let me go this way. I never know which direction to go with this. So this is Ignition, which is a personality profiling tool that I use with all my clients. And it's fantastic because it really helps you to be clear on, number 1, what are the best business model, and number 2, best growth strategies, and 3, best ways to kind of structure your time, structure the team, make sure they have everybody in flow. And what I mean by flow is, think of that wonderful sweet spot between stress and boredom, where someone is adding value, a huge amount of value, where they're more productive, where communication improves. When you have a team in flow, the team dynamics really improve. And that allows you, because they're all adding more value and they're in flow, the levels of trust go up. And that's really, really important, that it's not just that I trust this person because they are a trustworthy person, but actually I trust them because I know they're in the right role, that I've put them somewhere where they can shine, where they really can be successful. So that's really important as well. So however you do that, whether it's through Ignition or a tool like this, just making sure that you've got the right people in the right seat doing the right thing at the right time, that is where you really have a team that you can 100% trust. Okay, so the final point that I want to talk about here, and please let me know what are the questions that you have on what I've talked about so far. But the final point is actually learning to be okay with the fact that, because here's what happens a lot, right? Is that you have some team members and you want to delegate, but you feel, well, when I delegate, they don't do it as well as I do it. Now, sometimes it's not that they don't do it as well. Maybe they just don't do it the same way. And so it's very important to look at, well, what are the outcomes that you want to achieve? And what do they think is the best way to do that? They might come up with a better way than you had of doing it. A lot of the time you would want to be delegating to people who are a different personality profile to you. They have got different natural strengths and weaknesses. And obviously you want to be delegating the things that are in their areas of strengths. Now, it may well be the case that you are delegating a whole process, and that's great. If you already have some processes and systems in your business, good job. You want to be creating more of those. Often, though, if you talk through an outcome and, kind of coach that person into, so what do you think would be the best way to do that? They may come up with ideas that you'd never thought of. It's so easy for us to get blinkered into doing things a particular way. Now, processes and systems have their place once you've decided on the best way to do something, so that then, it's easy for somebody to step into that role if someone's on holiday or off ill or if they leave suddenly, that you have those processes and systems there to help that new person get up to speed really quickly. However, there is a danger of being locked into those. So it's always, when you have somebody new coming in, it's a great opportunity to look at, well, how is something being done? Is this actually the best way? And it might be the best way for you to do it, but is it the best way for them to do it? I remember once being in a role with a company where, and it was a sales role effectively, and I wasn't allowed to do it in the way that was best for me to do it, because my way of doing it would be, I want to do it. There wasn't really live video at the time, but my way of I want to go and do loads of talks. And instead they were trying to get me on the phone, calling people up. And it just wasn't really working, because that wasn't what worked for me. And so that's why it's important to make sure you're not abdicating, but making sure that you are actually looking at, well, what is it that's really working? Okay, so you've got to allow for the fact that some people, they're not going to do it as well as you in the beginning, because they have to learn. And if you are like a lot of entrepreneurs, very quick moving, quick thinking, going through stuff, and particularly where you're delegating to people who are maybe more detail orientated, more grounded, and they do things in a slower way, and they're asking you lots of questions, and you think you've told them everything they need to know, I'm here to tell you, you probably haven't. And they're asking questions because they want to be sure and they want to be accurate. And so there are times when you need to slow down to their pace temporarily. But once they've got it, they've got it. And then it'll happen over and over and over again without you needing to do it, without you needing to be there. And that's where you need to get to. So allowing for that fact of you need to slow down at this time. And this is one of the reasons why it's actually not just a good idea to hire people and hire the best people you can afford before you actually need them, because you have to allow for that learning curve. Even when you're bringing in an expert, there's still things that they need to learn. So about your company, about your clients, just getting used to, other staff that they're working with. So you have to allow for that. And there's also another aspect to this. And I've seen this a few times where actually what was stopping somebody delegating to team members as effectively as they could was not that they were worried that they wouldn't do it well. It was actually that they were worried they would do it better than they did. And this is where understanding your own and your team members' profiles is absolutely critical. Because then you understand, oh, well, of course that person would do that kind of task better than me or faster than me or in this other way than me, because they're this and I'm that. I have different strengths. I can really shine by being here and focusing on these things, and let them get on with that. And another aspect of this is about also not being guilty. So, I mentioned some examples of clients at the top. So, like one business owner who was dealing with a lot of team's personal stuff and was making all the decisions themselves, and who was constantly firefighting and not finding that things weren't getting done the way that they should have been or in the time that they should have been. And a lot of that was really around their mindset and around a lack of clarity in who was doing what and why. They weren't working to a plan. So all these things that we've talked about, they also didn't really have the right people in the right roles as well. And they ended up, they now have got a new team. And things are going brilliantly because they have followed this advice that we're talking about here. So yeah. So what is it that when you hear all of this, then, when you hear this about, okay, look at your own productivity first, have a written plan, have real clarity about those roles and responsibilities. I mean, really, in my view, people's roles and accountabilities ought to be reviewed every quarter in line with your plan. Because, like every time I do my 90-day plan, I'm changing what is in my calendar. I'm changing the way I structure my week to reflect what is most important in my 90-day plan. And you want the same happening with every staff member. Now, occasionally there's some roles that are ongoing things, like say, getting the money in. Okay, so cash collection. So somebody who does that role, the chances are their role isn't going to change a huge amount, if at all, over the year. But there are some people's roles that ought to change a lot. So you've got to look at what the role is, what they do. And that's not to say they can't be looking at ways to improve things. And, the kind of person who is good at credit control and cash collection, maybe there's another area of the business that they could input to that they're not responsible for, but their way of thinking would actually be really valuable. So that's another reason why it's so important to understand your profiles and to understand the natural strengths and weaknesses in the business, and to have a plan to work to so that everyone's able to input to that and see where they can contribute. I've had a lot of experience in major change management, okay, where we're talking thousands of people with job roles changing, new IT coming in, all those kinds of things. And one of the biggest things around change is, number one, communication, and the other is about involvement. So the more that you get your team involved in in your vision and in contributing to the plans, the more likely they are to be highly motivated to see that plan come to fruition. Particularly when you're making it really clear and you're building into that what is the impact that we are having as well. So that's really, really important too, because yes, people get paid to do a job. But when there's a meaning in that job, when people understand why they are doing it and the positive impact that that has on team members or clients or other stakeholders, then it just takes the work to another level. Okay, I'm going to draw to a close there. I thank you so much for joining me here today. Please pop in the comments and let me know, what did you think about what I've covered here today? Has it been useful for you? What's at least one thing that you're going to take from this and go and implement in your business? And of course, if you want to talk about any of these things, drop me a message. I'll be happy to set up a call. And I just want to share with you as well, actually, there's a video training which is called the 5-step proven form. Prove it. Blah, 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 blah. Let me do that again. The 5-step proven profit formula for doubling your profits. And I'm just going to share that with you in the comments, actually. So that's come in as the from Restream. This is something I'd love you to check out and let me know, what do you think, because there's some principles in here that can make a big difference for you. And particularly if you're growing your first team, and maybe part of that is actually, do I have a predictable enough flow of income coming in to make sure that I can cover everybody's payroll? You know, that you want to be looking at this. And when you do have a team, there's certain aspects of this actually that you can, bring into play to really increase your profits as well. Okay, this is my last live for this week, I believe. In fact, this might be my last live for this year. So thank you so much. Oh, thank you, Becky. You're very welcome. And Alison, thank you. Glad you found it useful. Yeah, look, it's almost the end of the year here. I'm just wishing you the best for a fantastic time over the holidays. Make sure you have a bit of a break. You might be taking the whole time off, or maybe you're just taking some of it off, or whatever you do, have that downtime. Use the time to reflect. If you do not have a written plan for your business, have a think about, what would you want to have in that? What is it that's really going to make the difference for you next year? This has been such a challenging year for so many people on personal levels, on business levels. I don't know one person that hasn't been affected in one way or another. And it also has created great opportunities as well. And I'd love you to go into next year thinking about those opportunities, thinking about maybe some changes and pivots you've made. How can you build upon those and capitalize upon them? And I know that there has been great news, obviously, about vaccines, but then there's been other news about, different strains and things happening in relation to the pandemic. So, if we were in and out of lockdown next year, that's the plan you want to be making. Please don't be making any assumptions of, oh yes, it's suddenly going to be 2021 and hey presto, wave a magic wand and, the pandemic has disappeared because it's a new year. And that's how I've heard some people talking about, oh, I can't wait to get this year gone and let's get into next year. Some things may not change a huge amount. I really hope and pray that they do, believe you me. But please plan as if they're not going to. And then you're going to be, and then if things do really improve, then you are really well set for that. But if they don't, you're prepared and you're on point for it. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Best wishes for an amazing time over the holidays. Best wishes for the new year. I will see you in January. Bye for now.